Escomatic coil-fed automatic lathe model D2 and D4. Setup operator training system. Lesson number 12, the Model D2 counter collet assembly. Located on the front of the Model D2 is the counter collet carrier plate. The carrier plate is adjustable to assure centering between the collet and the stock guide bushing. Mounted on the collet carrier plate is the counter collet assembly. The counter collet assembly is actually adjustable to position the counter collet. Located here is the collet open-close lever. The collet open-close lever operates the collet sleeve located in the collet assembly. Attached to the collet open-close lever is the collet pressure adjusting screw. The collet pressure adjusting screw is used to adjust the gripping pressure of the collet on the stock. The collet open-close lever contacts this collet sleeve adjustment nut. The collet sleeve adjustment nut threads onto the back of the collet sleeve. Located on the main camshaft is the counter collet cam. 0 point of the collet cam occurs during high point of the cam. At high point of the collet cam, the collet is open. 0 point of the collet cam corresponds to 0 of the main camshaft. This is the collet cam follower lever. The cam follower end of the lever will ride on the collet cam. Located at the opposite end of the cam follower lever is this push rod. As the collet cam goes to high point, the push rod will be forced into the machine frame. The collet will open. When the collet cam goes to low point, spring pressure in the collet assembly will force the push rod back out of the machine frame. The collet will close. Located on the opposite side of the machine frame is this push rod contact. The push rod moves the push rod contact. When the collet carrier plate is in its down position, the push rod contact will contact the collet pressure adjusting screw. Action of the push rod will then be transferred to the collet open-close lever. This is the face of the counter collet carrier plate. Located here is the oil tube. When the main motor is running, coolant will flow out of the tube into the tooling area. This is the collet sleeve. The collet sleeve is used to open and close the collet. Located in the center of the collet sleeve is the counter collet. The collet sleeve is pushed forward by the collet open-close lever. When the collet sleeve is pushed forward, the collet is open. Notice the collet is fixed and does not move. The collet sleeve moves forward to open and back to close the collet. This is the collet assembly removed from the machine. The major parts of the collet assembly are the counter collet, the collet holder tube, the mounting bar, the 2 collet positioning nuts, and the collet sleeve and collet sleeve adjusting nut. These are standard Model D2 counter collets. Each counter collet is marked with the size diameter it will grip. Collets are available in increments of 1/1000th of an inch. When the collet is open, the size of the collet is approximately 2/1000ths larger than the size marked on the collet. The collet will also close approximately 2/1000ths smaller than the size marked on the collet. A collet size chosen for a particular job should be in the midpoint of the tolerance range. The tolerance range for this part is 131 to 137 thousandths. Select a collet for the job in the middle of the tolerance. For this job, select 135 thousandths. If for some reason a part will not pass in and through the collet, the parts will fall back into the tooling area. The tools may be damaged. This is the standard collet holder. The collet holder is a tube which allows the finished part to be pushed out the back of the holder. Located here is the collet holder set screw. The set screw will hold the collet in the collet holder. Above the collet holder set screw is the oil hole. Oil will be pumped into the collet assembly. This oil hole allows the oil to enter the holder tube and push the finished part out the back of the holder. Collet sizes from the smallest to 160 thousandths can be held in the standard holder. For stock sizes above 160 to 188 thousandths, a different holder with a larger mounting hole is used. These are standard collet sleeves. The counter collet fits into the sleeve. This keyway located here is used to align the sleeve during mounting. On the side of the sleeve is an oil hole. The hole allows oil to enter the collet holder tube. There are two standard collet sleeves. This sleeve with a small opening will operate collets up to 100 thousandths. This sleeve with a larger hole will operate collets above 100 thousandths. Before assembling the collet to the holder tube, make sure the collet is marked with the proper size for the job. Slide the collet into the collet holder tube. Tighten the collet holder set screw. Slide the threaded end of the holder tube into the mounting bar. Make sure the alignment pins of the mounting bar face the collet. Next, thread the outer collet positioning nut onto the holder tube. Do not tighten the nut down. Leave some play in the assembly. Before mounting the collet assembly, loosen this collet pressure adjusting screw, lock screw. Turn the pressure adjusting screw counterclockwise. This will release any pressure on the collet assembly during assembly and adjustment. Make sure the collet carrier plate and collet assembly mounting area are cleaned of any chips or sludge before mounting the collet assembly. The collet sleeve must be inserted into the carrier plate from the face side of the carrier plate. Before inserting the sleeve, check the alignment of the key and keyway. Align the keyway with the key on the bottom of the mounting hole. This will also properly align the oil hole with the oil port. Slide the collet sleeve into the face side of the carrier plate. Put the collet sleeve adjusting nut under the open-close lever and thread the nut onto the sleeve. Tighten the nut until the outside of the nut and the sleeve are flush. The collet sleeve nut fits between the open-close lever and this spring-loaded portion of the carrier plate. Now insert the collet holder and collet into the collet sleeve. Make sure to align the pin on the mounting bar to the hole on the carrier plate. Tighten both mounting screws. Check to make sure the main camshaft is at its 0 point and the cams are at their 0 marks. Turn the tool head so that the tool holders are in their horizontal position. Unlock and lower the carrier plate. Check that the collet clears the tools and tool holders. If the tools do not clear, make the following adjustment. Located here on top of the carrier plate is the Collet Assembly lock screw. The lock screw is loosened to axially position the collet assembly into position in front of the tools. Check your part print for an approximate distance to set the collet from the cutoff tool. The collet will grip the stock usually on the largest diameter of the part. For this part, When the part is being cut off by the cutoff tool, this largest diameter will be 221 thousandths from the cutoff tool. This will be an approximate adjustment. Fine adjustment will be done later. Loosen the collet assembly lock screw. Move the assembly until the collet is approximately the correct distance from the cutoff tool. Lock the assembly in place with the lock screw. These are the collet positioning nuts. The two nuts are used to position the collet properly in the collet sleeve. This outer nut is used mainly as a lock nut to hold the collet assembly in position after adjustment. This inside collet positioning nut is used to position the collet into or out of the collet sleeve. This will also adjust the collet gripping pressure. Check your layout sheet and part print to see if the diameter on which the collet will grip is the same as the stock size. If the diameter is the same, the collet gripping pressure can be set with a piece of straightened stock. Insert a piece of straightened stock into the back of the collet assembly. With no pressure from the collet open-close lever on the collet assembly, the collet should be closed. Turn the outside positioning nut counterclockwise to loosen the collet assembly. This will give the assembly some adjustment range. Turn the inside collet positioning nut counterclockwise to move the collet into the collet sleeve. While turning the positioning nut, move the stock in and out slowly until the stock stops moving. Pull the stock with moderate pressure. The stock should not move. Check that the collet is still the proper distance from the cutoff tool. If not, loosen and move the whole collet assembly. Tighten the collet assembly lock screw. Tighten the outer collet positioning nut. Make sure the Collet Cam follower is on 0 of the Collet Cam. At this point, with pressure from the collet open-close lever, the collet should be open. Turn the collet pressure adjustment screw clockwise and try to move the stock. The stock will begin to move freely. Stop adjusting just as the collet stops opening as the collet sleeve is moved. You can watch the action of the collet sleeve and collet in the tooling area. As you gain experience, you'll be able to judge the feel and position of the collet better. Next, hand crank the machine until the Collet Cam follower goes to low point. At low point, the collet should be closed. When the stock is pulled with moderate pressure, the stock should not move. Turn the collet pressure adjustment screw first clockwise until the stock just starts to move. Turn the pressure adjustment screw counterclockwise until the collet closes and just holds the stock when pulling moderately on the stock. The stock should not move. Continue to hand crank the machine to 0 of the main camshaft. The collet should be open. The stock should move freely. If the collet is to grip the part on a diameter other than a stock diameter, a partial part will have to be made on the machine to make fine adjustments to the clamping pressure. This procedure will be shown in a later lesson. With the camshaft set to 0 point and the collet open, the collet assembly can be centered. Located here next to the carrier plate raising handle is the vertical centering adjustment micrometer. Located below the adjustment micrometer is a vertical centering micrometer lock screw. The vertical centering micrometer is marked with gradations. Each gradation is 1/2 thousandth. Located below on the carrier plate is an index line used as a reference. Located here on the back of the carrier plate is the horizontal centering adjustment micrometer. The micrometer will move the carrier plate left and right. These 4 screws are the horizontal carrier plate centering lock screws. The horizontal centering micrometer is also marked with gradations. Each gradation is 1/2 thousandth. Located above the micrometer on the carrier plate is a diagram with 2 arrows. One arrow shows the direction of rotation of the micrometer to move the carrier plate in the direction of the other arrow. To adjust the centering, you must first make sure the carrier plate is lowered down and seated properly. Next, insert a piece of straightened stock through the back of the collet assembly. Try to insert the stock into the bushing. If the stock goes into the bushing, make sure it moves freely. If not, loosen the vertical centering micrometer lock screw. Also loosen the 4 horizontal centering lock screws. Adjust both the vertical and horizontal micrometer centering adjustments until the stock slides freely in and out of the collet and bushing with no binding. Turn the vertical micrometer clockwise to raise the carrier plate. Lock down the vertical adjustment and recheck that the stock still travels smoothly. Lightly snug down the 4 horizontal lock screws. Check that the adjustment is still correct. Lock down the 4 screws and check the adjustment again. This completes your television training tape on the Model D2 counter collet assembly. You may watch this tape as many times as necessary to fully understand the material. When you have finished, return to the operator's booklet for your next step.